Watch what happens when I show you the actual ingredient list from KFC's most popular items. You're going to see chemicals that belong in your garage, not your dinner, and 10 menu items that even KFC employees refuse to eat. But here's the part that will really shock you. You've probably ordered every single one of these, thinking you were getting real food. Let's start with what KFC calls their bite-sized chicken pieces, but what food scientists call mechanically separated poultry product, with a side of regret. You know that feeling? When you bite into popcorn chicken, and it has the texture of, well, nothing you've ever experienced in nature? There's a reason for that. It's not actually chicken pieces. It's chicken scraps, fillers, and enough preservatives to mummify a pharaoh, all shaped into nuggets that would make a Play-Doh factory jealous. A former KFC supplier revealed the disturbing truth. Popcorn chicken starts as a pink slurry that gets pumped through machines and shaped into bite-sized pieces. We called it chicken confetti, because it was made from every part of the bird except the parts you'd actually want to eat. But here's where it gets truly artistic. The breading contains more chemicals than your medicine cabinet, including dimethylpolysiloxane, the same anti-foaming agent used in silly putty and contact lens solution. Apparently, your chicken needs to be as flexible as your morals for eating it. Look, I get it. You're busy, you need something quick, and KFC is right there, promising crispy, bite-sized convenience. But when the ingredient list reads like a chemistry textbook, maybe it's time to question whether convenience is worth eating silly putty seasoning. The ingredient list was longer than a CVS receipt, admitted a former food technologist. We had preservatives to preserve the preservatives. It was like Russian nesting dolls, but with chemicals instead of wood. The popcorn comparison is actually accurate. Both are mostly air and artificial flavoring. The chicken pieces are injected with water and sodium phosphates to increase weight, meaning you're paying chicken prices for seasoned water balloons. Customer complaints reveal the pattern. Nuggets that taste like they were marinated in cleaning solution, textures that bounce like rubber balls, and children who refuse to eat them after one bite. One parent documented their toddler's reaction. Even my 3-year-old knew something was wrong. She took one bite and asked if the chicken was sick. If you're craving bite-sized chicken, go for the original recipe drumsticks or thighs. They're actual pieces of chicken that haven't been through a blender and reassembled like poultry Frankenstein. Or better yet, hit up Chick-fil-A, where the nuggets are made from real chicken breast that remembers being part of a bird. Now let's talk about KFC's famous bowl. Famous for being a masterclass in how to disguise multiple food safety violations in one convenient container. This bowl of comfort wants you to believe it's a hearty, home-style meal. The reality is a compilation of KFC's most questionable ingredients, layered together like a geological survey of everything wrong with fast food. The mashed potatoes come from powder that gets mixed with water and enough preservatives to survive a nuclear winter. We joke that the mashed potatoes were more chemistry experiment than food, revealed a former prep cook. The powder would sit in storage for months, and when mixed with water, it had the consistency of spackling paste. I understand the appeal. You want comfort food that reminds you of home cooking. But unless your grandmother's kitchen looked like a laboratory and she seasoned everything with industrial preservatives, this isn't quite the same thing. But here's the beautiful part. The gravy is made from a mix that contains beef fat, chicken fat, and enough MSG to make your taste buds hallucinate flavor. It's like a greatest hits album of animal byproducts, all swimming in sodium levels that would make the Dead Sea jealous. The corn is the only ingredient that might have seen a farm. Unfortunately, it's been sitting in warming trays longer than some people's marriages. Corn would sit under heat lamps for hours, getting more dehydrated than a raisin in the desert, admitted a former kitchen worker. The cheese sauce deserves its own horror movie. It's not cheese, it's cheese product, made from milk protein concentrate, artificial colors, and enough stabilizers to keep it liquid at room temperature. Real cheese melts and spoils. This stuff could probably survive the apocalypse. And then there's the chicken. The same processed, reheated strips that have been sitting in warming trays, getting chewier by the hour. We'd serve chicken strips that had been reheated so many times they had the texture of shoe leather, revealed a former manager. The famous bowl is essentially KFC's way of using up all their leftover ingredients that are too old to sell separately. It's like a clearance sale, but for your digestive system. If you want comfort food, order the individual components separately so you can see what you're getting. Better yet, make your own mashed potatoes at home. They'll taste like actual potatoes instead of reconstituted powder, and your stomach will thank you for the upgrade. Next up is KFC's Nashville hot chicken, which has about as much connection to Nashville as a tourist wearing a cowboy hat has to being a real cowboy. KFC wants you to believe their Nashville hot is an authentic Southern recipe with genuine heat and flavor. The reality is, regular KFC chicken doused in a sauce that's more chemical burn than culinary burn. The Nashville hot sauce is a mixture of cayenne pepper, artificial colors, and enough preservatives to pickle a small village. It wasn't hot sauce, revealed a former sauce prep worker. It was basically ketchup with anger management issues and a chemistry degree. But here's where the deception gets truly impressive. The chicken underneath the sauce is the same processed, pre-cooked chicken used in all their other products. They just paint it red and charge extra for the privilege of eating artificially colored regret. Look, if you want spicy chicken, I respect that. But when the heat comes from artificial additives rather than actual spices, you're not getting authentic flavor. You're getting a chemistry lesson disguised as dinner. If you thought popcorn chicken, the famous bowl, and Nashville hot chicken were bad, buckle up. The next items prove that KFC can ruin just about anything, from sandwiches to sides to desserts. We've still got a few more menu items that will make you wonder why you ever thought KFC was a good idea for dinner. Before we get to the next batch of questionable food experiments, hit that like button and subscribe. It's the easiest way to make sure you never get fooled by fast food marketing again. Trust me, you'll want to know what's coming next. Now let's examine KFC's attempt to compete in the chicken sandwich wars. Spoiler alert, they brought a water gun to a nuclear fight. KFC's chicken sandwich wants to compete with Popeyes and Chick-fil-A, but what they're really serving is a masterclass in how to disappoint everyone simultaneously. The chicken breast is the same processed, pre-cooked product used throughout their menu, but now it's shaped like a sandwich patty and given delusions of grandeur. It wasn't a chicken breast, revealed a former prep worker. It was chicken paste molded into breast shape, like Play-Doh for adults with poor judgment. I get it. You see all the hype about chicken sandwich wars, and you think KFC must have stepped up their game. But sometimes, stepping up just means stepping up the marketing while keeping the same questionable ingredients. But here's the truly artistic part. The breading is designed to look crispy and golden, but it has the structural integrity of wet cardboard. The breading would fall off if you looked at it wrong, admitted a former cook. Customers would unwrap their sandwich and find naked chicken sitting in a pile of soggy crumbs. The bun deserves its own therapy session. It's so processed and preserved that it could probably survive longer than most relationships. The buns would arrive rock hard and get steamed to soften them, revealed a former baker. By the time they reached customers, they had the texture of a damp sponge. The sauce situation is where things get truly creative. KFC uses mayo-based sauces that sit in dispensers for entire shifts, developing flavors that would make a garbage disposal jealous. The sauce would separate and develop a film on top, noted a former sandwich assembler. We'd just stir it up and hope customers didn't notice the chunks. The pickle placement is apparently done by someone who's never seen a sandwich before. We'd get one sad pickle slice that would slide off the chicken faster than customers' enthusiasm, joked a former employee. Customer reviews read like a support group for sandwich trauma. Patties that fall apart before the first bite, buns that dissolve into mush, and sauces that taste like they were mixed in a chemistry lab by someone who'd never tasted food. If you want a chicken sandwich, literally go anywhere else. Popeyes, Chick-fil-A, even gas stations have figured out how to make chicken sandwiches that don't fall apart in your hands. Or stick with KFC's drumsticks. They're harder to mess up when they're still shaped like actual chicken parts. Finally, let's talk about KFC's Coleslaw, which proves that even vegetables can be turned into a food safety violation with enough creativity and disregard for human dignity. KFC's Coleslaw wants you to believe it's a fresh, crisp side dish that adds healthy balance to your meal. The reality is a mixture of wilted cabbage, artificial preservatives, and enough sugar to qualify as dessert. The cabbage arrives pre-shredded in bags that have been sitting in distribution centers longer than some people's attention spans. The cabbage would be brown around the edges and smell like it had given up on life, revealed a former prep worker. We'd just pick out the obviously rotten pieces and use the rest. I know what you're thinking. At least I'm getting some vegetables with my fried chicken. And I appreciate that instinct, I really do. But when those vegetables have been processed into something that barely resembles food, you might be better off just admitting you're here for the fried stuff. But here's where it gets truly impressive. The dressing contains more chemicals than a high school chemistry set, including calcium disodium EDT, which is also used in industrial cleaning products. Apparently, your coleslaw needs to be able to clean metal surfaces as well as disappoint your taste buds. The coleslaw dressing came in giant containers that would sit in storage for weeks, admitted a former kitchen manager. By the time we used it, it had separated into layers like a science experiment that nobody wanted to touch. The sugar content is so high that the coleslaw is technically closer to candy than vegetables. We'd joke that it was dessert disguised as a side dish, noted a former employee. Kids would eat it thinking they were being healthy, but they were basically consuming sugar-coated cabbage. The preparation process involves mixing wilted vegetables with artificial dressing in containers that may or may not have been properly cleaned. We'd use the same mixing bowls for everything, revealed a former prep cook. Coleslaw, chicken marinade, cleaning solution, it all went in the same containers. Customer complaints reveal the pattern. Coleslaw that tastes more like candy than vegetables, textures that range from mushy to crunchy in the same bite, and families who learned that fresh vegetables at KFC is apparently a very flexible concept. If you want coleslaw, make it at home with actual fresh cabbage and real mayonnaise. It takes 5 minutes and won't taste like it was assembled in a laboratory. Or choose the green beans. They're harder to mess up when they come from a can. If you thought it couldn't get worse than KFC's fake spicy chicken or that sad excuse for a sandwich, just wait. We're about to uncover how KFC manages to ruin even the simplest foods, from mac and cheese to biscuits, and even their desserts. These next items prove that if KFC can add preservatives to it, they will. And if you've ever ordered any of these thinking they were harmless sides, you're going to want to hear this. Make sure you're subscribed, because the last few items on this list will change how you see KFC forever. Now let's talk about KFC's mac and cheese, a dish that somehow manages to disappoint both pasta lovers and cheese enthusiasts in one sad little bowl. On the menu, it looks like creamy comfort food that could transport you back to childhood. In reality, it's a processed nightmare that has more in common with liquid plastic than real cheese sauce. The pasta arrives pre-cooked in giant bags that sit in storage for weeks. We'd get these heavy bags of macaroni that looked like something you'd find in a fallout shelter, revealed a former prep cook. We'd dump them into pans, cover them with fake cheese sauce, and heat them until they looked edible. But here's where it gets truly artistic. The so-called cheese is mostly a chemical mixture of whey, oil, artificial colors, and stabilizers. Real cheese melts and spoils. This stuff could survive an apocalypse. The sauce came in industrial containers that would separate into layers of orange oil and mystery solids, admitted a former employee. We'd stir it until it looked smooth and hope no one noticed the chemical smell. The texture tells the whole story. Customers describe it as either gluey paste or watery mush, depending on how long it's been sitting under heat lamps. By the end of a shift, it had developed a crust so thick you could peel it off in one piece, said one worker. Even the flavor is designed for manipulation. The cheese sauce is loaded with MSG and artificial butter flavor to trick your taste buds into thinking it's rich and creamy. It's less comfort food and more culinary catfishing. Customer complaints are brutal. Flavorless pasta, drowned in fake cheese, oily residue that coats your mouth, and portions that taste like cafeteria food gone wrong. Parents expecting a kid-friendly side dish quickly learned that their children prefer not eating to eating this yellow disappointment. If you want real mac and cheese, make it at home with actual cheese and real milk. It takes 15 minutes and will taste like actual food instead of melted preservatives. Or skip it entirely and get a baked potato. At least potatoes remember they were once grown in soil. Finally, let's talk about KFC's biscuits. The one menu item that looks golden and buttery, but is secretly a dry, preservative-packed hockey puck in disguise. These biscuits might seem harmless. After all, how do you mess up flour, butter, and baking powder? Apparently, by replacing most of those ingredients with processed shortcuts and chemicals designed for shelf life instead of flavor. The biscuit mix came in giant bags with more preservatives than actual flour, revealed a former kitchen worker. We'd just add water, bake them, and brush them with fake butter oil. The butter topping you see glistening on top, it's not butter. It was a yellow liquid that smelled like margarine and chemicals, admitted another employee. We'd painted on the biscuits to make them look fresh out of the oven. The inside texture is where the disappointment hits hardest. Customers describe them as dry, crumbly, and capable of sucking every ounce of moisture out of your mouth. We used to joke that the biscuits could choke a camel, said one former manager. People would order them, take a bite, and immediately reach for a drink. The flavor is equally sad. Without the fake butter glaze, the biscuits taste like bland flour bricks. They looked great, but they were just salty cardboard, recalled a former employee. The worst part? These biscuits can sit in warming trays for hours before being served. By the end of the day, they were rock hard, admitted a former worker. We'd heat them again and brush on more fake butter to make them look fresh. Customer reviews reveal the truth. Biscuits that crumble into dust, butter topping that tastes like chemicals, and people who swear they've had better biscuits straight from the freezer aisle at Walmart. If you really want bread with your chicken, grab a plain dinner roll at the grocery store, or make biscuits at home with actual butter. At least you'll know they weren't sprayed with chemicals pretending to be flavor. KFC's pot pie looks like the ultimate comfort food. Flaky crust, creamy filling, and hearty chicken chunks. But the reality is more like a cautionary tale about what happens when leftovers get a second life. Former employees admitted the pot pie is a recycling project for old chicken and vegetables that have been sitting in the warmer for too long. We'd take the chicken that didn't sell, shred it, mix it with gravy, and throw it in the pot pies, revealed one ex-worker. It was basically a way to use up scraps before they had to be tossed. The gravy inside isn't fresh either. It's the same sodium-packed mix used for mashed potatoes, bulk prepped in vats that could double as industrial paint buckets. The filling would sit in warming containers for hours before getting poured into the crust, another former employee said. The vegetables? They come from frozen bags and are cooked until they have the texture of wet paper. By the time they hit the pie, they were mushy and flavorless, one prep cook recalled. Even the crust, which looks golden and appetizing, is pre-made dough brushed with fake butter oil to give it that fresh-baked sheen. Customer reviews echo the disappointment: soggy crusts, overly salty filling, and pot pies that taste like someone melted down a TV dinner and called it comfort food. If you want a pot pie, make one at home with fresh chicken and vegetables. It takes a little longer, but you'll actually get a meal worth eating, not a graveyard for KFC leftovers. It's just a cookie, right? How bad can KFC's chocolate chip cookie be? Turns out, pretty bad. The cookies arrive at KFC as pre-formed frozen dough pucks, with a chemical ingredient list long enough to require a legal disclaimer. The dough had more stabilizers than actual chocolate, admitted a former employee. We just throw them on a tray and bake them, no effort required. The chocolate chips are barely chocolate at all. They're made with chocolate-flavored compounds that substitute cocoa butter with cheap vegetable oils. They tasted like waxy sugar blobs more than chocolate, said one worker. Because they're baked in bulk and stored in bins, the cookies often go stale before you get them. We'd bake a whole batch in the morning, and by evening they were hard as rocks, a former shift manager revealed. Customer complaints are consistent: dry, flavorless, and tasting more like sweet cardboard than a dessert. It's the kind of cookie that makes you wonder why you didn't just grab a $1 pack of Oreos instead. If you want dessert with your chicken, skip KFC entirely. Grab a cookie from a bakery or even a supermarket. It'll taste fresher, cost less, and won't have a shelf life longer than your leftovers. Mashed potatoes sound harmless, but at KFC, they're a masterclass in how to turn something simple into a processed mess. The potatoes aren't potatoes in the traditional sense. They're dehydrated flakes mixed with hot water, flavor powders, and preservatives. We called it potato paste, revealed one prep cook. You just pour the powder in, add boiling water, stir, and pray it looks like food. The texture swings between gluey sludge and watery soup, depending on who mixed them that day. Sometimes the ratio was off, and they'd come out so thin you could drink them with a straw, said a former manager. The gravy poured on top isn't any better. It's made from a powdered mix packed with sodium, MSG, and modified starches. It was basically brown salt water with a thickener, one employee admitted. Customer reviews often mention lumpy, bland potatoes and gravy that taste like bouillon cubes dissolved in tap water. It's comfort food that somehow manages to be less comforting than instant mashed potatoes from a box. If you want mashed potatoes, buy a $2 bag of real potatoes and make them yourself. It'll take 15 minutes and taste like actual food instead of rehydrated powder pretending to be comfort food. These 10 KFC items prove that convenience doesn't have to mean compromising your health or your taste buds. Now you know to avoid the processed nightmares and stick with items that are actually recognizable as food. Your family deserves better than chemistry experiments disguised as dinner, and your wallet deserves better than paying premium prices for artificial ingredients. If this saved you from your next regrettable KFC experience, subscribe for more fast food truth that chains don't want you to know. Because the truth isn't always finger-licking good, but it's always worth knowing.